Hey guys, it's Karen, my review for Overlord. And what Overlord is essentially about is we center on a bunch of soldiers who are entering into the battle for World War II. D-Day has not happened yet, but it is very close to that time, and basically they are involved in this plane crash, and only 5 of them survive, and they are taken to this one like safe house, and during this time one of the soldiers ends up stumbling upon this lab, and when he gets into this lab he starts to realize that there is something much more sinister and unhuman at play, and he wants to try to do something about it, and that's really all I'm gonna say. So, Overlord overall, I was very intrigued by this movie, to say the least. I mean, I've been following it ever since it was supposed to be another Cloverfield movie, and at the time I was excited because of how disappointing the Cloverfield Paradox was. I thought this could maybe wash that taste out of my mouth, because, you know, maybe this could be a much better film. And then, of course, they said it wasn't a Cloverfield movie, but I was still really excited. It looked really different, it looked very intriguing, and once again, it's J.J. Abrams producing it. You know, he really has not let me down thus far, and I was really hoping this could be a really solid film, and that's exactly what it is. Overlord is a very creative and different film that I had a lot of fun with, and we're just getting into right now, starting off with the cast. And right off the bat, that is one of the best things about this movie. I think everyone here really gives a very good performance. You can tell that everyone here is having a lot of fun, but especially when it comes to Jovan Adepo, who I know, once again, the Leftovers the Leftovers fanboy me. I'm one of the biggest stans of the Leftovers out there, but how can I not be? I mean, there was just so much great talent that was ushered in that show, and Adepo was definitely one of them, and he continues to show why he is such a great actor in this movie. He's very charismatic in this role. He is the character that by far has the most character development for sure, and you really do root for Boyce, because while everyone else is very focused on the mission, he really wants to move forward. He's very intrigued by what's going on in this lab, and he really wants to kind of put a stop to it, and I really loved where his character ended up going, especially in the third act of this movie. I think he has some really great stuff to do, and I thought he was really great here. But equally as strong for me is Wyatt Russell as the character of Captain Ford, who I thought was phenomenal in this movie. In fact, for me, this is the best work I have ever seen from him. I really loved his role here. Ford is someone who is very by the book. You know, he knows that the mission is what's most important, and he doesn't want to try to deviate from that. And the clashing between him and Boyce is some of the strongest stuff of the entire film. These two work very well together, but especially in the scenes where Russell is interrogating someone, I mean, he really is at the top of his game here, and you can definitely see that the talent that his father had has very much carried over here. I mean, I think Wyatt Russell is really starting to assert himself to be a very dynamic actor, and I really want to see what he does next after this film. Really loved him here a lot. Everyone else here I thought also was very strong. Mathilde Olivier I really liked as the only female character in this film. Chloe, I thought she was definitely really good here. Pilou Asbæk, I mean, this is the main villain, Captain Warner. This guy, you can tell, he's really hamming it up, but he is having a damn good time in doing so. I enjoyed him immensely in this film. He was very good here, as well as the other characters here. John Magaro, I really enjoyed a lot. I thought really everyone just worked so well together in this movie, and that is something I really loved about this film. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, which that is, again, one of the things I really liked about this film, is that, sure, we've seen this concept done before, you know, where there's zombies and things like that, but the way that Julius Avery goes about it is different than how I'd seen other directors approach it. He approaches it in a way where this film is still very much a war movie, and it is very much an action film at times, but it also does have a lot of horror in there, and I like the way that he's able to blend those two genres together, because the war scenes in this film, they're very intense. They're very on the edge of your seats, and you really do feel like you're into it, but especially when the film veers into more horrific territory, I think it works very well in that sense, and I really did enjoy his directing here. In terms of the writing in this movie, that's another thing that I really enjoyed here, because the film does take a long time to fully get into the story here, which, like I said, the story itself it is pretty general. You know, he discovers the lab and he figures out what's going on, and there's not really much more going on than that. But what they do with this story, the execution, the impact that it has on all the soldiers, I thought was actually really interesting, especially once we see how Boyce is someone who really wants to try to stop them single-handedly. He doesn't really want anything else to get in his way, and the way this starts to challenge the camaraderie he has with, you know, his fellow soldiers, I thought was really great, and I really enjoyed that story a lot. But the film also has a lot to say about being in the military in general, you know, why someone would enlist and things like that, and the difficulties that they all end up going through. Sure, maybe it's not delved into as much because the film never takes itself that too seriously, but I still really did enjoy them. Like I said, for a while, it is very much just them trying to find the safe haven, trying to stop, you know, the Nazis and things like that, but eventually realizing that these Nazis are much more evolved, and I thought that was definitely really good. And the world building, especially when we get into what's actually going on, I thought was actually really creative. And again, sure, we've seen zombies before, but these aren't necessarily zombies, as they are more just evolved human beings. Like, they have this much different sense of strength. They, you know, they have all kinds of different abilities that they can do, and I really like the way they tapped into that here. Again, it makes the film, it makes the enemy much more undefeatable, and I enjoyed that a lot. There's a really great scene, for instance, with Private Boyce and with Mathilde Olivier's character, and he's talking about who he was prior to this war, how he was just someone that, you heard it in the trailer, but, you know, he was cutting grass on his front lawn, and then all of a sudden, he, you know, gets the notice to join the war, and this is really an opportunity for him. And again, while the film is really silly, it actually does have a lot of interesting insight on why someone would want to join the war and what this would really do for them. What are they really trying to get out of it? And I think that really just elevated my enjoyment of the film overall. You know, it's definitely a fun movie, but it does have that extra dosage of social commentary of why someone would want to join a war, and I actually thought that was very effective overall. It made me care for these characters way more than I think, you know, it could have, definitely. However, like I said, while this film is a fairly simple plot, it definitely does have a few problems that I do think hold it back from being as great as it could possibly be, especially when it comes to the characters. The characters here, they're not bad. I really did enjoy all of these characters a lot. My issue with them is that they really only are, you know, based on, like, one archetype. Like, for example, there's one character here who he loves taking pictures, and he really loves his camera. You know, he can't really do anything without it. That's his entire character, is his fixation with this camera and his desire to constantly document everything. That's really all his character is. Same with someone like Mathilde Olivier. You know, all her character really is she is someone who was on the Nazi side, but now she really isn't. And again, it's not a huge problem for me because they still were enjoyable. I liked these characters a lot. That's not the big problem in this movie. That's not the thing that does hold it back for me. The thing that I think that is the biggest problem with this movie is its lack of an antagonist, which I'm not saying there isn't an antagonist, because there absolutely is. It's that there are a few too many in this movie, because like I said, while we do have Pilou Asbæk, who eventually becomes like the main antagonist, for a while it's hard to discern like who that really is, because you also have the scientist who is creating this experiment, and I wish we could have gone into his worldview a little bit more, why he really did this, what the purpose of it is. You know, we really don't, they barely scratch the surface about it, and I do think they could have maybe done a little bit more there. But again, I enjoyed what we got, to the point where it's not a huge complaint. It's just something I think that could have made the movie a little bit better, and I do think was holding it back just a little bit. In terms of cinematography, though, it's really great. I was very impressed by the cinematography here. The CGI does look really real. If this were to happen, I think this is probably what it would look like. And especially once we see how the people who, you know, have been affected by this serum actually looked, I thought was really well done, and I really enjoyed the cinematography here, but especially in the war sequences, I mean, they are incredible. This has to be some of the best cinematography I've seen in any action movie all year. The opening sequence alone is one of the most pulse-pounding things I've seen all year. I was so on the edge of my seat, and I really love the cinematography. The action sequences are very well constructed. They definitely do not disappoint, and I really love what I got out of it there. But also the score. This film has to have one of the best sound designs of the entire year. I mean, I have a friend who, you know, I saw this in IMAX, but I have a friend who didn't see this in IMAX, and he still said that it was actually really loud, and just the scope of everything, I thought was so well done here. The climax especially is probably one of my favorites, maybe not the entire year, but it's definitely one of my favorites in a while, and like I said, it really does not disappoint. I did enjoy the score here a lot, and the editing, I will admit, the first, I'd say, you know, the first hour, the first 20 minutes of this film are fantastic. It does drag a little bit at first, but once Boyce gets into that facility, and once he starts to realize what's going on, the film really does not let up from there. It really does get more and more interesting as it does go on. The ending is a bit abrupt and a little too happy than what the rest of the film was presenting, but the thing I really love about this film is that it is very much a standalone. It's not trying to set up a bunch of other sequels. It's trying to be a standalone, and that's really refreshing to see. There's so many films nowadays that I see that they try to set up other sequels, and they try to do whatever they can to set it, you know, make it a setup movie, and oh, well, we'll get to that in the sequel. This film is not overtly concerned with doing that, and I'm hoping it doesn't get a sequel, because I think this is the perfect definition of a really fun, standalone B-movie, and that's really all it needed to be. And even at that, though, it still does have a very talented cast. It has a... So overall, Overlord was a lot of fun. You got a very talented and committed cast here that I really enjoyed a lot. Even though they are a bit underwritten, I still did enjoy what we got with them, especially when it comes to Jovan, Adepo, and Wyatt Russell. I thought they were for sure the standouts here. It has some really great action sequences. It has a lot of fun with its goofiness, because there are a lot of goofy scenes in this movie, but at the same time, it definitely is a lot of fun to watch, and I definitely enjoyed that a lot. It has a very creative and different premise that, sure, we've seen before, but the film does do something different with it entirely. It isn't anything complex. It isn't really anything that, you know, I think is going to necessarily blow you away. But if you want to have a really great time and you want a film that is, you know, that maybe will be a lot of fun, then this is definitely, I think, a film that will do that for you. I think this film will definitely give you the fun that you want. It has some really great action sequences. It's very well constructed, and actually does have, I think, some good things to say about the military in World War II overall that I definitely did enjoy. No, it is not a Cloverfield movie, but it is a very fun sci-fi film that I had an immensely good time with, and I'm definitely going to give Overlord overall a B. But over, guys, in my review of Overlord, the most guys saw this movie overall. Leave your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.